Hey, and welcome back once again to Ancient Ways for Modern Days. Today we've got a very special text as we continue to walk through 1 Timothy chapter 2. And to set things up for us today, I want us to consider maybe a moment in your life when you have been at odds with someone that you care about. You've been in the middle of a disagreement with someone. Maybe there was some sort of an offense or some sort of differing of perspective between you and another person. And no matter how much you tried, it seemed like you couldn't quite work things out. Well, in those moments, if you're wise, you'll go and you'll find what's called a mediator. A mediator is someone who arbitrates between two parties where there has been a fault or there has been some sort of estrangement. And the mediator is able to stand between the two and help the two come to terms with what has happened and bring the relationship back together. Well, the reason I share that is because today we are going to look at how there is one mediator between God and man, the man, Jesus Christ. I want us to look at the text today. Go ahead and jump with me. 1 Timothy chapter 2, verses 5 through 7. The Apostle Paul writes, after he's described this desire that all would be saved, he says, "For there is one God, and there is one mediator between God and men, the man, Christ Jesus, who gave himself as a ransom for all, which is the testimony given at the proper time. For this I was appointed a preacher and an apostle. I am telling the truth, I am not lying, a teacher of the Gentiles in faith and truth." Now, Paul makes a big deal about the truth here. He says, listen, I'm telling the truth, I'm not lying. And he says, I am a teacher in faith and truth. And he says, all of this is built upon this clear declaration that he makes that there is one God and that there is one mediator between God and men. And this one mediator is the man, Christ Jesus. Now, when he's speaking of there's only one God, he's talking about the one true God, the true and perfect judge, the just judge over the entire world. And he says that there is a need between God and man for there to be a mediator. Now, go back to my original example. A mediator is needed when there are two parties that they're at odds with each other. Well, let me just remind us that mankind, we find ourselves at odds with God. And it's not because God did something that upset us, but it's because we have rebelled against his order, against his law, against his character. See, this one God, the maker of heaven and earth, he made life to work according to his character. He made life to work according to what's true and right and good. To work according to the pure form of love, which is God in his character reveals. And so God says, this is how I made life to work. This is how all are meant to live. And then you and then I, what we have done is we have said, nope, I'm going to live life my way. We're like the 3-year-old when mom and dad tells us to do something and we say, no, mom and dad are right. We are wrong. But in this case, it's not just mom and dad and our hand is going to be slapped. It is God is righteous. And we have rebelled. We have been wicked. And there's nothing we can do to fix it. We not only have become at odds with God, we not only have rebelled against God, but listen, when we try to come to terms with God, we come and say, well, I'm willing to give this much, and God, maybe you can give this much. We come thinking the wrong way about making it right with God. We think we can make up for our sin or that we can earn extra credit. The reality is none of that is true. We can't do anything to fix what we have broken. So we need a mediator. And this mediator is the man, Christ Jesus. And Christ doesn't bring us to the table and say, okay, Mike, how do you feel? And okay, God, how do you feel? No, here is how Christ mediates. Christ looks at us in our sin. He looks at the consequence that is required for our sin. He realizes that it is in fact death to pay the price for our sin. We must have perfect righteousness and we do not. And here's how he mediates. He says, I am going to stand between you and God the Father. I am going to die to pay the price for your sin. I am going to give you my righteousness. And in that, he mediates a new relationship, a new covenant between us and God, where we are welcomed into the family. We are adopted as his children. We are washed white as snow. We are made new. We are his. Christ has been the mediator. Verse 6 speaks of this mediation. It says, who gave himself as a ransom for all. He died. He died for us. This is Christ who is our mediator. And we rejoice in this. We take peace. We find peace and we take heart knowing that we have been made right with God through the mediator, Jesus Christ. Now today, Paul says, I'm telling the truth, I'm not lying. He proclaimed this message. This is the message of a Christian. Here's my question for you then. Do you have the one mediator? Are you still relying on yourself, or are you relying on Christ? If so, rejoice knowing that he is a perfect mediator. And if not, turn to Christ and be saved. But let me press this a little bit more. Because Paul makes this point. He says, listen, I am telling the truth. I am not lying. He speaks about how he's a teacher of the Gentiles in faith and truth. Paul understands that because he has a mediator, he is called to point everyone he can toward this mediator. This is your calling as well. If Christ is in fact your mediator, and you look around at your loved ones and the co-workers and the world around you, and you see that they stand judged before God, and there is a mediator who can mediate for them, you and I, we are called to tell as many as we can, to teach as many as we can, the faith and the truth, which is all found in the mediator, Jesus Christ. And this is our ancient way for our modern day.